This podcast is for entertainment and storytelling purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice. Some topics may be sensitive. Please listen with care and seek support if needed. Welcome back to the Because She's Adopted podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Park. If you're new here, this is the podcast where we blame everything on being adopted. Just kidding. Hello and welcome back to the Because She's Adopted podcast. Today, my guest is Gloria Ballantyne-Packo, an Indigenous woman from the Paw, Manitoba, and member of the Misipawistik Cree Nation. Gloria ran for Miss Indigenous Canada in 2024 and used that platform to bring awareness to the still unsolved murder of her sister, 18-year-old Kendara Ballantyne. Today, we're talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit Plus people, a conversation that is deeply important and also deeply painful. Some of the topics discussed may be difficult and triggering, so please take care as you listen. According to Statistics Canada, the data shows Indigenous women and girls face disproportionately high rates of violence, being 6 times more likely to be homicide victims than non-Indigenous women. With alarming statistics highlighting systemic issues rooted in colonialism, racism, and misogyny, leading to a national inquiry that urged comprehensive action. Statistics reveal Indigenous women make up a significant portion of female homicide victims despite being a small part of the population. And while most homicides are solved, the violence itself remains a crisis. Sadly, in your case, Kendara's has not been solved. So today we're grateful to welcome Gloria to share your voice, to share your story and your strength. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very grateful to not only just catch up in this type of way, but also to, talk about my sister and who she was and the nuances of grief and trauma and navigating that while also being an Indigenous woman. And I'm very grateful and excited to dive deeper into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I am too. When I read these statistics, are you surprised by them?
No. I am not.
No.
A lot of times, there's the bias in society with Indigenous people and just an overall, disregard of who we are and that we're human.
I agree. And families fighting for justice, and that's what your family has been doing. Why don't you share a little bit about maybe who you are? We'll start with that, and then you can get into who Kendara was.
My name is Gloria Ballantyne-Packo. I was born and raised in the Paw, Manitoba, and I have lived many different lives. I am someone who is very adaptable to what life has tossed my way, and a lot of times it hasn't been the greatest to have to adapt to, but at the same time, I am someone who recognizes the privilege of the way I think and navigate life. I have become someone who takes what's thrown at me and just kind of, learn to handle it and move forward and grow. And I think that's a big part of who I am, is that I'm always changing and there's always a different version of myself that I've known and that I've loved every part of my journey in life, but that doesn't negate the fact that I'm just a girl. I'm just going through life like anybody else. And I have been very grateful for the opportunities that I have worked for and received. And I grew up as just like a little girl, hoping to find what my purpose is in life. And I'm still trying to figure that out. With losing someone so tragically, a lot of it goes to wanting to live life in a way that honors my sister. But at the same time, I've tried to also learn who I am outside of that. And so I'm still in that process of discovering who Gloria is besides, my trauma and my loss, and figuring out where I belong. Well, not where I belong, because I know that I am worth being wherever I choose to be, but finding out what my path is currently. And all that to say, there's many phases of my life that I could kind of dive into, but kind of an overarching is I have ADHD, so that it was a late diagnosis in my life, and it makes a lot of sense because I was a high school dropout and ended up getting my mature student diploma, and just a lot of that adaptability kind of a thing I've seen come to fruition in my life. I'm someone who loves my family, I love my friends, and I just also love being able to, to talk to people and connect with people. And that kind of led me into pageantry, funny enough. So there's a festival in the Paw that's been running for a very long time. I grew up around it. It's called Northern Manitoba Trappers Festival, and they have a pageant. So there's a fur queen that gets crowned along with a court. And me and my sister Kendara, we grew up going to the parades and the events and stuff like that. And when we lost her, I didn't know if that's something that I would be able to do, just because there was an age restriction on it. But I ended up being able to do it and willing and capable to do it. So I entered, and I ended up winning that year. So I am the 2023 Manitoba Trappers Festival Fur Queen. That's a title that I hold very close to my heart. And then from there, I applied for the inaugural Miss Indigenous Canada, and I was chosen for it. And that's kind of where the platform of being an advocate for missing and murdered came from. It was through the love of my sister and just the adaptability and the desire to make more people aware that it's not cut and dry. It's not, it's painful for a little bit and then life moves on. Like, yes, it does, but it doesn't mean that things go back to normal. You just kind of figure out your next move, and it's kind of where I am. I'm just going through life and taking it as it comes.
For those of you who don't know my story, I was adopted, and my home community is the Opaskwayak Cree Nation, which is just across the river from the Paw, Manitoba. And I met Gloria for the first time when I was filming in 2021, the first time I ever went back to the Opaskwayak Cree Nation. And that was where we met. And we'll talk a little bit more about that day a little bit later on from my perspective, because I still feel very disconnected from the community because I live so far away. And the only way that I am able to sort of stay connected is through the people that I've met and watching them, live their lives out on social media. And when I saw you win the Fur Queen, it was just, I was so elated, and I knew that it had a much deeper meaning for you, looking on. So congratulations.
Thank you.
to see how much you've grown. I mean, when we met, that was 4 years ago. You've lived a lot of life since
Yeah.
then as well. So, all right. Well, why don't you share who Kendara was and is to you?
Yeah. So, just kind of like a brief uh, explanation for your viewers and who may not know, listeners as well. With Indigenous families, it's very like intertwined. Like your cousin is your sibling. Like it's so different because a lot of Indigenous people, it's, oh, you're my family. We're close, and I care about you deeply, so you are my family. And so that's kind of how it was with Kendara and a lot of my siblings. I am actually my mother's only biological child, but she raised a few other people who I consider my siblings, and Kendara is was closest to me in age in our cousins, and so we grew up very close to each other, just with the way we were experiencing life and the phase we were in. Kendara was very small, but she was mighty. That's the best way I can describe her to anyone who hasn't met her is she was very strong, both mentally, physically, emotionally, every aspect you could think of. Her dad passed away before she was born, and then her mom passed away when she was 8. So from that age and on,
Hmm.
she was technically an orphan, but again, going back to Indigenous families, you take in who you take in and you just continue living life and take care of each other. And originally, Kendara went to live with um, people that she was really close to in Lakdabani. She has family there, like my auntie's husband had been from there, and so she would go there during summers when she was a little kid. So that's kind of where she went first when my auntie passed away. But it was just something where she needed to be closer to her relatives, and so she came to live with my auntie Rhonda, and that's where she grew up for their most of her life. And it was really close in location to where I grew up with my family in the Paw. So we would always hang out whenever I would be in town because I was away for school for a few years. And it was like, yeah, she was one of the main people I was always so excited to see, and vice versa. And she was the best little sister I could have ever hoped for. Um, she had this laugh that was so electric, I guess, is the word that I would like to use because it was very loud. It was very high pitched, but it was so you could feel the joy in her laughter, and her smile just radiated throughout a room, and the love and compassion she had for other people. Like she literally has given the like sweater off her back to a friend who didn't have a jacket in the winter. She loved like being around the little kids in her family. So those were her nieces and nephews, and she would take care of them and play with them and just, be that person to pour love into them. And another thing that she was really passionate about was um, the more vulnerable population in our community. So there's a big homeless population, and at the
Hmm.
time, my mom was working at the soup kitchen, the local soup kitchen when it was up and running. So she would go there and volunteer and everything like that. And you know, um, it's so interesting to look back on this now, but there was a group called Bear Clan, where they would, you know, walk around the community, make sure people are safe, look for missing people, if which we'll dive more into that on the local.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they at that time she wanted to apply to be part of that, And my mom had found her application a couple years after we lost her. And the reason she put on the application of why she wanted to join was to look for missing people.
Oh.
And
Wow.
that OCN Bear Clan was part of the group of people that had found her. And so it's just interesting and very mind blowing to like see these things after the fact, and like to know that like small things that you never would have thought twice about would mean so much after and bring so much insight to life and all of that. But nonetheless, she had so much love to give. And something that is really funny that I always think of to this day is she would always say, again, because she was like very strong, like I said, she was small, but she could knock you down, you know? Whenever groceries had to be taken in, she would take all of them, as much as she could, put them around both of her arms, around her neck, whatever it took. And and one thing she would say is 2 trips are for losers. So that's what I try to remind myself of when I'm taking my groceries is you got this. You can carry it all. 2 trips are for losers.
Yeah. You need a shirt or a sticker.
Or reusable grocery bags that say that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you got to patent that now. Someone's going to take that idea. Thank you for sharing so much about who Kendara was and really getting into that, because I think for people doing interviews like this, you know, they just want to like let's get to the story. That's such a small moment in her life. She lived so much life up until that happened, and so I think it's fair and right to share about her in that way, to really focus on that time, that life that she did live and who she was. And so I really value that and appreciate that, that you share in that way. And I've seen other interviews that you've done, and you always honor her by focusing on that.
I think that's also a testament to who she was, is the fact that I am simply, this is something that I think of all the time, is like I'm simply a mosaic of all the people I've ever loved. So there are parts of her that I try to carry with me all the time, and that's being that light in spaces. And you know what really has helped me a lot to ground myself throughout all of this is how lucky am I that I got to experience life, as little life as she did have, together.
We're having some technical difficulties this morning, and Gloria just informed me that it's minus 36, did you say?
36. And I don't even think that is letting us know the wind chill. That's just the baseline. And that's why they call it Winnipeg.
That's cold. That is cold.
The people make up for it, I swear.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's so offensive, the cold, when you go there. I've always wanted to go to the Trappers Festival. I know it's coming up in February, but I'm going to have to go out and get some appropriate winter gear to attend. So I'll be calling you for some recommendations. How do I even say this, Gloria? Let's talk about this terrible tragedy.
I don't even know. Let's see.
How do you begin?
I can begin where my perspective on all of this begins. At the time, I was living in Calgary. I had just moved there, and my mom and brother came during their week vacation in the summer, and we had just gone to Banff just for a day trip, and then we got back to my place, and my auntie was reaching out to my mom to see if she had heard from Kendara. So at the time, she was newly 18. Well, she had been 18 for a little bit. And after she was 18, she moved out of my auntie's to go live with some friends and just like kind of figure out where her place was in the world and stuff like that. So she was out and about, but she would always check in with someone. She would always check in with my auntie, even if it was going there once a week to say hi or, to bum a smoke, whatever. um, but it was about over a week, and my auntie hadn't seen her or she hadn't communicated, and so my auntie was reaching out to my mom to see if she had heard anything or anything like that. And so I remember we were sitting on my couch and just on the phone. It was posting on Facebook, reaching out to her friends, calling other people. Have you heard from her? Like, has anyone seen her? And so far, nobody had. And that's kind of where it started to, set in that the reality was nobody knew where she was. And so we had made posts and statuses and just asking people, have you seen her? Like, please just get her to call. And I remember making a post and it was like, I just need to hear her voice. I just need to make sure that she's okay. Like anybody, like if you've seen her, let us know. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And my auntie had made a missing persons report, but it wasn't being acted upon in a timely manner. So our family took it upon ourselves to make missing persons posters and hang them up and share them around the community and online. And there were people messaging being like, could this be her? Could that be her? But every time it wasn't, or it was in a community that she had never gone to before, didn't know anybody there. So it was like, thank you to the people who thought it could be, but it didn't end up. And so there was just that consistent, is it like the sitting on the edge of the seat, being like, where is she? And, I have been aware of a lot of issues that Indigenous people face, not only like residential schools, because my dad is a survivor and I have family on both sides that did attend, and hearing about 60s scoop and stuff like that. And like you hear about missing and murdered, and you go through life and you think, that is so tragic and that is so sad, but it's probably not going to happen to me or to anyone that I love. And that was the day where my mindset shifted, where, you never know what could happen. And it was almost as if after that, a lot of things changed in life, where it felt like a rug was ripped out from under me in a sense of safety, because after that it was, well, now I'm scared to just even go outside. Like I still, if I don't have to go anywhere, I won't. Anyways, going back to it, my mom and my brother were set to continue to be with me in Calgary for another week or so, but we all, like me and my mom, because my brother was pretty young at the time, and I don't know if he fully grasped what was all happening at that time, but we decided that it was probably better that she went back to the paw, because she's one who people go to figure out like what's the game plan, what are we doing, like taking the lead and stuff like that. So that's the weight that she bears and continues to bear for our family as a whole. So like just shout out to my mom because there are things on her shoulders that I may never know, and all of that, and just the heaviness that she holds. And she does it because of the love of her family, and that's the main thing that we all operate in. But yeah, so my dad met us halfway, so we both drove to Saskatoon, met there in the middle. My mom and brother went back home. I went back to Calgary. And from there, it was like I couldn't sleep. I, was on like even the phone. It was very triggering. Like that's something that I never realized until that happened was if I get a random phone call, like if someone doesn't text me beforehand and is like, hey, like, are you free for me to call this time? And if I just get a random phone call, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's happened? Like is that something bad happened and everything like that. And so I've had to mention that to my family and my friends to be like, hey, this is how that makes me feel. And I'm very thankful that they're very receptive of that and they understand that. Yeah, so I think it was for a few weeks where it was just, again, on the edge, always glancing at my phone. And one thing that I vividly remember from that time in my life was I couldn't sleep. Like, I was afraid to sleep, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't until I saw the sun rising that I was like, okay, there's light and people are awake and everything like that. So it was like the sun brought a sense of safety. And so my body was like, okay, you can rest now. And so that was, yeah, it was just a hard time in life. Um, but there was one day where, again, I couldn't sleep. And so I was awake. And that whole day, it was just, there was this awful feeling that I had in my chest. And throughout that period, usually I would just like be like, okay, like things are fine. People are doing what they need to do. People are looking and they're searching and all that kind of stuff. And I'm doing as much as I can, but you can only do so much when your due province is over, right? But there was just something about this time where I was like, I just have a feeling in my gut that something bad is, like, I'm just sensing something that I can't put my finger on. And so I called my mom and I was just in tears. And when I had called her, they were actually out searching. And she was in the vehicle. And so she said to the people that she was like, go on ahead. Like, I need to take this call. It's my daughter. And so she took the call. She listened to me and she was calming me down and everything. And I told her, I was like, I don't know. I have an awful feeling. And um, towards the end of that call, she got a radio in from the group that was searching, and it was that they had found something. And so she's like, I gotta get going. Um, but she was like, I'll call you later and everything like that. And then I fell asleep. And then that evening, she gave me a call and she let me know that they had found some remains. And when I think about that, I think of how mind blowing, it is that you can have a feeling of something and not know what it is, but later you look back and it could be like such a big part of your experience in something. Because if I hadn't called at that time, if I just let myself feel like that, my mom could have been one of the people who
Mm-hmm.
found her. And I don't know if that's something that she would have been able to handle. And whatever people believe in, like there was definitely something that put that moment in existence to where, it was meant to happen in that moment the way that it did. Like the timing of everything was just enough to for us to be able to kind of, be aware of the bigger sense of everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I don't know what would have come of it if it was any different in that moment. And I'm just very grateful that she didn't have to see that with her own eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the like our connectedness, like our connectedness to like the earth, to one another, to our family. What was the time frame between when Kendara went missing and then was found?
I'd say it was at least a couple weeks between when she was officially like missing and when her remains were found, but even that has extra time explanations too because um, they couldn't identify her um, immediately, and because there are so many missing and murdered, not just Indigenous women, but also Indigenous men within um, the tribe community of the Pa, Ocean, RM, like that area of Manitoba. Um, there are a handful, maybe even more, of unsolved missing people. And at that time, they couldn't figure out if it was the remains were male or female. And so the police, they were like, we can't say for sure that this is her yet, or if it even is. And that started, I would say, like a 3 week waiting game of, is this? But we, there was a gut feeling of, we're pretty certain it is, because with someone so lively and so bubbly in life, when that isn't in this like space of existence anymore, it's evident. And there was just this emptiness from that day where it was like, we know, but again, kind of recalling back to earlier in the episode where I had mentioned that both her parents passed away. It was difficult to get the medical confirmation, so that took a few weeks, and then I remember I had been out with a friend, and we went back to my house, and because I was still in Calgary, and my mom, she texted me. She was like, "Are you alone right now?" And I said, "No, so and so is here." And she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna call you." And when she said that, I knew. I knew exactly why she was calling me. And so I went into my room, and she had said that she had been texting with my friend to make sure that someone was with me. Um, I think I had two of my friends there, but yeah, she was texting with them to make sure that someone was there before she called, so I wasn't alone. And she told me that it was confirmed that the remains that were found were Kendara's remains. And yeah, I just, it was shocking, but more so it was jarring, I think, is the best way that I can describe it, is like having confirmation that I'm never gonna get one of her famous bear hugs again was a terrible realization to have to come to, because she, oh my goodness, did she ever give the best hugs. Like, they were so tight and you could feel just the love radiating from her, and it was a hard day. I think that's kind of the time in my life where things shifted a lot. The like place I was in at the time, and then to go through this kind of tragic loss, they didn't go hand in hand. Like, I think what people assume helps in the time of this kind of news, they assume, let's give people time, let's pull back and let them deal with things. But that was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I'm 2 provinces away from my entire family, and now this support that I thought that I had is retracting. And so it was like, what am I doing here? What am I like? This isn't good, not just for me, but for my mental health. And so
Yeah.
after that, I had moved back to the paw, and that's kind of where everything started for certain, of like advocating and like doing that work to try and like get answers. Because even within that whole timeline, it took 3 years for the police to categorize or label Kendara's death as a homicide. For 3 years, they said, oh, it's unsolved, like it's mysterious or whatever, it was an accident. No, it was not.
Yes.
Like, my sister didn't, she wouldn't have just given up. She was a fighter. She was someone who, again, she was strong. I believe that up until her very last moment, she was still fighting. And for it to take so long for them to rule it as that really gave me an insight as to the importance or lack thereof that authorities place on Indigenous women, and missing Indigenous women more so, because a lot of the main questions were, oh, was she like drinking a lot? She was probably out partying and all of that kind of stuff. And not any more so than a regular 18-year-old, and just for that to be the go-to to dismiss her was just awful, because I know who she was. I know the type of person she was, and family was the most important thing to her. So there was no way that she would go so long without even, reaching out or anything like that. She had so much to live for and so many dreams she had. One of her, it's so small and so simple, but one thing that she would always say is one day she wanted her own place, her own apartment, and to live in the city. And she said, I'm always going to have spaghetti in my fridge. So whenever people come over, they're not going to be hungry. And it's just small stuff like that. And I remember when it's so, obviously it's not silly, but without the context, it sounds silly, where the first time I had spaghetti after everything happened, I couldn't, like, I broke down, and it was something that I never thought would be a trigger, as simple as spaghetti, but because it was tied to that memory and the potential of what life could have looked like for her, it was very, very triggering. And, you know, in life, I'm still learning and discovering like what triggers um, come up, and it's a really uneasy feeling. Um, but you just take it one day at a time.
This is my thought as you're speaking. You mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you felt afraid as an Indigenous woman. You felt afraid to go out, and
Hmm.
it's not just that you feel afraid that the reality that the potential of this happening to you is real. It's the reality that the authorities won't do what they need to do to help, and that they won't do the right thing in a timely manner. So you mentioned that they weren't taking her having been reported missing seriously, and so therefore they weren't acting in a timely manner. And then when they did discover her, they automatically went to these racial stereotypes. Well, this had to be her fault. That has to impair your ability to have trust in the people that are meant to help us, like the police.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like 100%.
I mean, prior to this, did you already have a distrust as an Indigenous woman?
Yeah. Like there was always, because, going back to residential schools like that, those were the authorities that went in and took the kids and all that kind of stuff. So there was, as Indigenous people, we don't have the privilege of being unaware
Mm-hmm.
of these types of things. And so I've always
Mm-hmm.
had that in my mind of, you go to your family first before authorities. Not because you don't like, well, I guess because you don't trust them. Exactly. Is I trust my family more to turn to action than I do the people who are put in those authoritative positions. And I know there's so
Yeah.
much going on in the world that people may never see within that job field. And I'm not discrediting the tough things that people deal with or experience or see, because I can't even imagine.
So when you and I first met in 2021, I was filming for my doc, and we were in the arena.
Gordon Laughlin Memorial Center, GLMC.
And so they were doing, it was Indigenous Days,
Hmm.
and I was sitting there, and your family all came in with remembering Kendara t-shirts on, red t-shirts. And
Hmm.
initially, I thought that it was another missing and murdered Indigenous woman that your family was representing. And I don't know if I ever told you this.
I don't
And
think so.
so I approached you, and I'll never forget. I said, "Could I talk to you about this on camera?" And you said to me, "Well, first you need to meet my family." I'm a young, brand new documentarian, and you're like, "No, hang on a second. Like there's an order of things, and there's like a level of respect that we need to go through before you're just going to get my story." And I'll never forget that. And I think in that moment, you really taught me um, something very, very important. And so thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. And you did share um, on camera about Kendara. And at that point, they still hadn't deemed her death a homicide.
Yeah.
right? That was in 2021. And so, what did your family have to do? What did you have to go through for to fight for justice for them to just even say, okay, this was a homicide?
Yeah, so our family, since we lost Kendara, we had started what we call KB Memorial, which stands for Kendara Ballantyne Memorial. And basically, it is me, my mom, and my older cousin Desiree. It was
Shout out to
born,
Desiree. I
yeah,
I love that girl.
hey girl. She's gonna be welcoming a baby this year, so that's exciting. Um,
I've been watching that. That's so
yeah,
wonderful.
but yeah, again, it started out of love for each other and love for our family, and we began as a small group that wanted to, keep saying her name, keep having awareness out there because
Mm.
we believe and we hope that one day, justice will be served and we'll have some answers. But it started off as having a vigil, um, just walking from one location to another with a group of people. And it was amazing the turnout that came to support us. And from there, it kind of grew into events and initiatives and, connecting with so many other people that we may have never uh, come in contact with. I mean, Exhibit A, you and I, like if
Yes.
like my family hadn't come in that day to support my younger cousin because she was saying a speech about MMIW during the pageant, the
Yes.
Opaskwayak Indigenous Days Princess pageant she was in. Um, it kind of just, went from a vigil into a yearly memorial walk that we have the day it was confirmed that it was her, which is technically like her death day, which is August 6th. That was the day it was confirmed that those are her remains. And yeah, so every August 6th, we walk from where her remains were found behind University College of the North, and we go to Kinsman Park, which is across the town. And we pass by this graffiti that says Justice for Kendara. And
Mm.
something I always like to point out about that is it just showed up one day. Like our family was just driving through town and we noticed it, or someone pointed it out. And yeah, we still don't know who did that, but it warmed our hearts to know that we weren't the only ones thinking about her or thinking about and recalling her memory. And ever since, the first walk, it went into having an award for a graduate from the school that she went to every year because she never got to graduate. So we want to ensure that people who have had to overcome adversity know that, hey, even if you don't decide to go to post secondary, this isn't a scholarship, this is a gift. You did it, kind of a
Mm.
thing. And we do things on May 5th, which is a Red Dress Awareness Day, October 4th, which is another awareness day, which also happens to be her birthday. October
Mm.
4th is Kindara's birthday and also MMIW Awareness Day. Um,
Wow.
so, yeah, there's many things that our family has been able to do to, continue saying her name and having her on people's minds, not just someone who's forgotten. Because, kind of referring back to the many people who are missing and murdered in our community, like a lot of people don't talk about them anymore. And it's not something that we want another family to feel. And so that's kind of the reason behind our memorial walks is yes, we do this to bring awareness to her case and to let people know that we're still, striving for that justice. But we also invite family members and people involved in MMIW organizations to come and to speak and to say what's on their heart or just kind of talk about their loved one. And over the years, we have met so many families who are going through the same thing. And it's something that I am grateful that we have the opportunity to be able to connect with people, but it's also saddening to know that there are so many people to connect to that we still may not have connected with yet who are going through the same thing. And throughout this whole process, we started at ground zero. Like, we didn't know what organizations to reach out to. We didn't know who was also impacted or what resources were available. And so that's something we strive for, is that other families don't feel alone, because it is, as much as it impacts so many people, it's also very isolating, because it's like the people who don't understand don't fully understand. So it's difficult to actually completely talk about this kind of loss and the things that trickle from it. It's not just this one event, but it's the life after the event, and all of that, and the memory of someone.
I really appreciate you coming and sharing all of the things that you shared today. So where can people find KB Memorial if they need to reach out? Is that somewhere where you can offer resources to people or send them in the right direction?
We have a Facebook page called KB Memorial. It's just run by, like I said, the three of us. So what we aim to be is like a hub. Like, if there's a family who is wondering like what resources are available, then we can try and connect them with someone who does have the capacity and the ability to help them out. That's also somewhere where if people have information, they can message. And we haven't been the greatest at keeping up to date with posting on there, just because, life. And again, we're three people trying to navigate life and grief and all of that kind of stuff. But it's definitely something that we still check into often. And that's where people can go to learn more about who Kendara was, the initiatives that we've done and continue to do. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I've really enjoyed as standing in solidarity with your family has been being able to watch the live stream on August 6th when you do walk for Kendara. And I believe you replace all the red ribbons on the bridge between the
Yeah.
PA and OCN. And so I'm hoping to make it there one of these years to walk with your family. And I do want to say, somebody knows something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody knows something. If anybody has any information, please go to KB Memorial
Or Crime Stoppers is a good one.
or Crime Stoppers. Any piece of information is helpful. So please keep that in mind. Anybody listening that may know something, you never know. Okay, Gloria, what has been the most difficult piece for you personally? You shared about the loneliness, and I think people really don't know what to do with grief and
Mm-hmm.
death in our Western society. I think they're really bad at it. People just don't know how to support, and they say the stupidest things sometimes, and they think they're being helpful and they're not. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to what's been the hardest part of that grieving process, and then what's been the most helpful part as a grieving person.
Yeah. I kind of alluded to this earlier in the episode, where this, I thought I had a support system that I could lean on, but unfortunately I didn't. And I think that was the biggest thing that I'm still working through, is to feel like I can trust people to open up about my grief, and not to feel as though like I'm just kind of trauma dumping or like talking to a brick wall. I think the biggest thing that has made a difference for me in being able to trust someone to open up in that way is to feel seen. And I think like I've seen many like posts online where people have said like sometimes you just need to sit with someone when they're going through something and check in, sometimes being like, oh, do you want to do this or whatever. For me, I have recognized that that is the biggest thing where I don't feel pushed to talk about something, but there's that space where if I do decide, then that someone's going to sit there and just be open to what I decide to share. Because there have been times in my life where I have shared with people who turned out not to be a safe space or a judgment-free space. And I think that is the biggest thing that I can say for people is sometimes all people need is to feel seen and to feel like there is someone there to like have that option, because nobody likes to be forced into anything. You know, nobody likes to feel like they have to talk about something or if they have to dive deeper. I think, like I have said, I'm an open person, but that doesn't mean that I freely give of myself. It's like if I notice that someone is actually inquiring because they genuinely care about me or care about the topic, then yes, I for sure love to, you know, dive deeper into things and understand things more. But if it's oh, hey, how's it going? Like, how are you? Then I'm gonna be like, oh, like things are good. When in reality, they're probably not good, but I don't feel safe to like say this in such a passing conversation, you know? So it's the intention.
Yeah, and I think too when you're struggling with grief, it's not this thing that you like work through and then you get over. It you know resurfaces when you sit down to eat a plate of spaghetti, or you know it can resurface in the most surprising ways. And so I think that for me at times I kept feeling like, oh, I don't want to talk about, you know, this loss that I had because I feel like that's all I'm talking about. And like, you know, and I feel like a broken record, but like I'm really dying to still talk about it at times. Yeah. And when I think about it, if someone came to me 100 times to talk about the grief that they experienced, of course I would sit there with them. But I think as being the person that's experiencing the grief, there's almost like a self-consciousness you might feel, right? And that's hard. That's hard because you do need to process through those things. We had talked, I sent you some notes on this prior to us meeting today. What's your perspective on true crime media, TV, documentaries, podcast as a tool for not only raising awareness in cases like Kendara's, but then on the opposite side, how do you respond to the idea that some people describe true crime as a comfort watch or a listen?
Yeah, so it was actually really cool when I read that that's something you wanted to talk about, because I had just become aware to my perspective on it like a couple of years ago, because I realized that I do have people in my life who watch stuff like that, and just that's their genre of media that they consume. And like, not even as far as true crime, but some dramas, some suspense movies, some thrillers, I still stray away from consuming because I know that there are some aspects of it that could be triggering and that um, would affect my spirit in a way that I wouldn't want it to. And one of my best friends, actually, she is a true crime junkie, and that's like something that she was raised in. And I also, our family used to watch CSI just like in the evenings and simple things like that. But it's just something that I personally don't. There are times where I do feel like intrigued by some things and I will watch some things, and those are usually when I'm not in the depths of, my grief and feeling heaviness. And um, I think it is very important for people's stories that are actually true to be spoken of, because it does bring that awareness. And even you were probably going to mention this later, but Taken is a show on APTN and produced by Eagle Vision, and it's something that I was aware of growing up, but just the capacity I had never watched an episode, but I knew what it was and what it was for, and was always very, appreciative of the families who did speak about their loved ones in that way in such a, national platform. And then when everything happened, there was this tiny hope inside me where it was like, I've seen this show growing up. And so the fact that this has happened, like, I want to be able to talk about my sister. I want to be able to have people know who she was in this like natural or national platform. And it was something that I kept inside that was like a hope to like kind of gradually go towards and like one day make happen. And then 2024, like the end of 2024, I received an email from Eagle Vision saying that they were making a new season after not being on air for a while, which I didn't know that they weren't on air. It was just something that I had hoped would happen. And so I found out that they were making a new season and that they had heard about Kendara in some way, and they were just missing one episode for that season, and it just serendipitously happened to where it all worked out. And I have no doubt that Kendara was a part of creating that opportunity. And yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I know that that episode was made with a lot of care from the team.
So APTN's documentary series Taken highlights the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people across Canada, told through the voices and experiences of families and communities affected by these tragedies. The current season 5, episode 9 is dedicated to Kendara's story, and you can watch it on the APTN Plus app for free. I don't know if it's available in the US. I did try and do a little Google search before we got on today, and I don't think so. It's just another way of getting the message out, which will hopefully lead to some answers. We'll put everything in the show notes. When we're talking about true crime and media sharing these stories, I think where the issue, where it becomes an issue, is when the people consuming this type of media are not looking at these victims as real people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have somebody like you come on and share and talk about Kendara. And she was a real person. She was a human being. You know, her life mattered. It matters. And so I think moving forward, when people watch or listen to things like this, to remember that these are real people who are attached to families,
Mm-hmm.
who are still in deep, deep grief
Yeah.
about the loss. And has there been have you gotten any answers? Is there
So,
any speculations on what could have happened? Like, is there anything?
as far as I know, my mom is the contact between KB Memorial and the RCMP,
Hmm.
but there hasn't been any contact in, I'd say, about the last year or so, maybe even longer. Like she has reached out, but because like the people are always changing in that position, um, it's been tougher to actually like get an update because we would get updates at least once or twice a year in previous years, but lately there hasn't been anything. So I think that's something that's like extra hard is the who knows if what we're doing is making an impact. All we can do is continue. But yeah, as of right now, I am not aware of any movement in her case.
Do you feel like the RCMP failed you and your family in Kendara?
I think the system failed our family and has failed
Mm-hmm.
Kendara. I don't know if I would say the RCMP specifically or um, systems in general, like schools or, you know, society or just overarching everything.
What would you say to individuals who don't believe that missing and murdered Indigenous people is a racial issue? Laugh at them, right?
Yeah, that's all I can do is, people are gonna believe what they're gonna believe, and most times you can't change that, and that's something that
Mm.
they'll have to deal with in their own life. And all I can do is continue to pour my efforts into raising that awareness and growing as an individual. Um, but it's like you said in the beginning, like the statistics are there, like there's the proof, there's the numbers, but also I think the biggest thing that I want to reiterate to people who are hearing about the numbers is that each number equates to a person. It's not
Mm.
just, oh, this like formula that's in the air of, oh, on average, there has to be people in order to find out what an average is. There has to be
Mm-hmm.
a large amount to figure out that there even is an average, that there even is a percentile of something. And, Canada was built on colonialism, and every system that was created has roots to colonial ties, even school systems, even healthcare, even the job force. Everything connects to something. And to not think that the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people isn't racially driven would be not just a disservice to Indigenous people, but also a disservice to people's worldview. Like everything has so much deeper of a meaning than just a overarching surface layer like logic. there's always something that connects to another thing. And all I can try to do is to bring insight to that, whether people choose to listen or not. That's not something that will affect me in the present day, but I know that it does have long lasting effects on a lot.
Well said. Gloria, is there anything else that you want to add?
I started a job at an office here in Winnipeg, and it has really shown me that there are people who genuinely care, and there are people who do see me, even though I haven't fully opened up to them yet. They see and they care, because one of my coworkers, well, a lot of people are aware of the fact that uh, my sister is Kendara and she was missing and murdered and all of that.
Mm.
There was a phrase one of my coworkers said that had the word murder in it, and she stopped right away. She's like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to say that." And I have realized that I have, again, like I mentioned, put expectations of what I think people have for me above my own comfortability. And so a lot of times
Mm.
I'm like, no, 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 like it's okay. Like you obviously didn't mean it in that way. And so like, don't worry about it. But she was very much so, no, it's not okay. And I am going to try my best to continue to be aware that that's not something that is like that should be said in such a
Yeah.
like way. And I think that really changed my perspective on the spaces that I allow myself to stay in and the
Mm.
people that I allow myself to be surrounded with. And I've taken a very large step back from a lot of things and started to, look deeper into who I am and where I'm headed and what I believe and what I allow myself to put up with and what my worth is as an Indigenous woman, because a lot of the safety of being an Indigenous woman is lacking in
Mm-hmm.
not just physical safety, but also emotional safety.
Cultural safety.
Exactly, because our people have always been told, speak when spoken to, like, don't make yourself bigger than you have to be, like, make room for other people and stuff like that. But I'm
Mm.
slowly starting to learn to take up the space that I think I want rather than the space that I'm being pushed into. It's just small things like that with people that I'm around and people that I have currently in my life that are showing me those things. They're showing me that I'm worthy of safety. I'm worthy of stability. I'm worthy of people caring and having
Mm.
people love me the way that I am. Like, I don't, my trauma isn't something that is, should be considered baggage. It's not something that I have
Yeah.
to apologize for. Rather, it's a part of what has led me to be the woman that I am right now. And I love the woman that I am now. And I'm just excited to continue to learn who I'm becoming and continue to meet people who add to that, not take away from it, who um, are a safe energy and make me feel seen and heard, because that's something that I've always wanted for other people to feel for me. I want people to feel safe. I want them to feel seen and I want them to feel heard. Like, I think ever since I was a teenager, those three words are the words that I've always wanted to have people feel when they're around me.
So, where can our listeners connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram. It's GLRPCK. So
All
that's where
right.
you can find me.
Okay, so that's where you can go and connect with Gloria. I will include various resources, the things we've talked about, the taken episode in our show notes. And Gloria, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today with me, for taking the time to share Kendara's life with me and us. And you mentioned before that you are, really growing into this person who you're meant to be. And I just want to say I loved you back in 2021 when I met you, and I love you now. I'm so grateful to know you and to have been able to bear witness to this journey that you've been on, despite it being such terrible circumstances. And recognizing that you are so much more than your trauma, and you're going to do beautiful things in this world. You already are, just by being who you are. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. And thank you for giving me the space to, verbally process, to share, to kind of go through things as well. And thank you to your listeners for tuning in and joining us on this journey of an episode.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the Because She's Adopted podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us. And go like and follow us on all the socials, and we will see you next time.